Hey guys, I'm Jax and this is my review for HotD. And if you've clicked on this video, I don't think I need to explain what that means. But just to clarify, I of course mean this is my review for this hot donut. A delicious classical donut. Center of jam, an outer coating of sugar. So, how does this donut stack up? Ugh. Not great. 2 out of 5? So HotD is finally back, everybody's favourite prequel series about dragons. Honestly, I kind of forgot how beautiful and spectacular this show looks. The cinematography, the locations, the sets, the costumes, everything on a production level is so incredible, it's honestly overwhelming. It reminds me of Game of Thrones, obviously, in that when I look at pretty much every other show on TV, I'm like, wow, that doesn't look like the price it cost. And yet when you watch this show, you're like, how did they make the money go so far? So all our favorites are back for season 2. We've got Budget Joffrey, Budget Daenerys, Budget Littlefinger, Littlefoot, if you will. They're all back and they're all pretty great. Do I love any of the characters in this series as much as I love my least favorite character in Game of Thrones? No. But I can say that for most series. It's just that HotD being a prequel to Game of Thrones reminds me of that fact more than any other show, and it's not fair, so I'm mentioning it briefly up top, and I won't mention that again for the season. Maybe. Speaking of this being a prequel, oh boy, was that first 5 minutes the most prequel-y this show has ever felt as a prequel. A shot in the woods, iconic sad Stark music from Game of Thrones plays, we see Winterfell, we see the Wall, we see Budget Jon Snow, all of it conjures the feeling of just the most classic Member Berries prequel situation ever. Oh boy, did that start just make me really, really sad that we're not just watching Game of Thrones season like 10, 11, or 12, and that they didn't rush and botch the finale in the last couple of seasons. No matter how good, great, or good enough this show will be, it's never gonna stop reminding me that I just wish Game of Thrones hadn't botched the last 2 seasons and hadn't rushed it all. To hear that beautifully sorrowful and melancholy Stark theme that was part of that show that encompassed and consumed my life for so very long, it just felt like such an ironic thing to put in the start because it just made me feel sorrowful and melancholy for the show that should have been and the show that I wish I was still watching. It just felt like such a Member Berries thing of being like Winterfell, Stark music, there's a Budget Jon Snow on the wall, member Game of Thrones, member, and I'm like, I do, and I wish I was watching that rather than this. It was just such an odd and kind of, I don't know, it left a funny taste in my mouth. To be fair, that might be the hot donut that's still ruminating in my teeth and just making me feel unpleasant and gross. But it's also mostly the fact that the rest of the episode has so little to do with being like member Game of Thrones. It's such a good prequel in that way where I almost never feel like it's trying to remind me of the thing that I loved and the reason this show exists. And so it just kind of annoys me when the first 5 minutes is just so heavy on that nostalgia for that thing that I loved. But then also ending on a note where I'm like, oh, don't also remind me of the reason I hate that show now with the White Walkers, where they're like, why do you think this wall was built? Who cares? You ruined all of that. Don't remind me of that thing that made me hate the thing that I love. It's like I don't want to combine the two things. I want to watch this as its own unique story set in the universe. And when I just know that none of these characters will interact or be a part of the White Walker saga, and I don't want them to be, I don't want them to mention the White Walkers or even vaguely hint at it. Just don't put it in. So to start the season like that, it's like, it's just like an off way to start. Luckily enough, the rest of the episode is great. So this episode is mostly concerned with the aftermath of the death of little boy Strong. He was on a little dragon and then the big dragon ate him. And everyone involved was like, dragon, don't do that. Even though it's like, what do you think the dragon was gonna do, Aemond? You sexy, cool, yet clearly idiotic man. And so Budget Daenerys is all like, I'm sad, and that makes sense. But then she finds like the wing, and it's kind of odd, because I'm like, I thought that must have already happened. Because when she's told what happened, and that the guy died at the end of season 1, I just presumed they must have found the body and the carcass and gone, well, that was a dragon. Because until they found like a part of the body, which she finds this episode, How would they know what happened? Did Aemon just come back and go, I've made a terrible mistake? Surely he could have just been like, oh, I don't know what happened to that little boy Strong. I just flew off on my dragon. Why did he tell anyone what happened at all? It just feels like a weird thing because they were up in the sky, clearly alone during a storm. How did anyone see or hear or know what happened? They were miles out from sea, weren't they? I don't know. It's just a small little like, what? I mean, who cares? So everyone's sad. And Budget Daenerys is like, I'm gonna need you to, kill that guy. That guy looks like an anime character. Kill him. And so Doctor Who enlists two murdery scumbag guys. One who's a guard and the other one is like a rat catcher, who ironically becomes a bit of a rat himself. And so these two rat thief boys slowly creeping their way through the underbelly of the castle. And then at one point, just like strolling through the throne room. I don't know what was happening there. The rat problem in King's Landing must be so horrendous if two rat catchers can just wander through the throne room at the most sus time of nighttime. If two rat catchers can just stroll through the throne room and no one not even notices them, but they don't even kind of like stiffen up or ask them a question or really react in any way. And then whilst I love that King Aegon was all like just drunk and hanging with his boys, and him and his boys are just like talking trash and being drunk and just being young little hooligan boys really. They're just kind of shit talking and having a laugh. So of course he doesn't notice and these friends don't notice because they don't care and they're incompetent and they're idiots. That's great. What is he paying the guards for? They don't notice them. They don't do anything. They don't even kind of like put their hands on their swords in case these two rat catchers just like charge at the king. Like they just let them stroll on by. It's just like, how bad is this rat problem if you're just letting rat catchers roam free? I don't know. It just felt like a little weird that not even one guard went, what are you doing? And they're like, rat catching. They're like, okay. I don't know. It just feels like the guards are like, they're not earning their keep, if you will. Regardless of how incompetent or maybe just lazy the guards are, the two little rat catcher boys, they try and find Aemon, but of course, they realize that Aemon's actually a main character, so they can't kill him this early in the season. And they're like, dang nabbit, what are we gonna do? Who else could we kill? How about that little boy that had one scene for the first time and probably was introduced this episode, but if not, he was so unmemorable, I didn't even realize that Aegon had a son. Maybe they put it in season 1, but it kind of feels like they didn't. And they're like, oh, we gotta kill that kid. We better put in a really cute scene where he's grabbing a little jewel marble thing. And that guy's like, oh, you're a really annoying little toddler. And then Aegon's like, that's my son, the future king. Ride on him like a donkey or whatever. Honestly, that scene was probably my favorite of the whole episode. Really fun and cute. Kids super cute and awesome. So, like, a great scene to set up for, like, oh no, the tragedy of him dying. But outside of the true horror of, like, them decapitating and, like, killing a kid, just generally speaking, because obviously horrific, and I think it speaks to the depraved nature of this entire universe, where I'm like, yeah, that's, like, depraved. It's not, like, super depraved. It's like, if it was in any other show, or most other shows, I'd be like, that's way too far. For Game of Thrones, I'm like, one kid killed in his bed? It's like kind of shocking, but I was like shocked for a second, but then I was kind of honestly more shocked that they didn't kill two. I really thought we were getting a 2-for-1 special here. Like, you're not going to do a 2-for-1 dead kid in the bed situation? Like, how do you actually know which one's which? Like, you may as well kill both just to be safe. I don't understand why they wouldn't kill all three. And I'm not trying to be all bloodthirsty and like crazy to be like, I just wanted to see more death. I'm just thinking from the logical standpoint of these two murderous rat catcher guard characters. And then I also am completely shocked and confused why the queen wasn't also killed. She could easily raise the alarm and get you guys captured before you have time for a clean, quick, easy escape. I don't really understand why they let her go. You kill all three, you do it quick and silent, you sneak out like rats. But now you're gonna have to run away like rats because the guards are chasing you. It's just a weird decision because these aren't honorable men that have been forced to do this for like the love of their wives that have been captured or kidnapped or something like that. So it's like, well, if I don't kill one kid, my wife and children are gonna die. It's like, these are just dirty, horrible little men that are doing it for money. I feel like they would just kill all three and run away safe and clean to like survive for themselves. They're really lucky she didn't start just screaming as she was running. She just like silently ran away so that guards wouldn't be raised, I guess, so they can escape for the plot. I don't know, it just felt really weird and odd. One scene I really loved was King Aegon with all of his common folk asking for favors and requests. That scene was just a fantastic scene with him, the Hand, and the common folk. I'll never get sick of seeing kind of the day-to-day minutiae, the machinations of being king. Just those really simple little things that he has to do day in and day out, but also how it kind of showed us his character. I really liked how he's like, I want to be loved by the common folk. So the first guy's like, can I have my sheep back? And he's like, sure, buddy, have your sheep back. Sounds good to me. And then the Hand's like, no, then everyone will want their sheep back. And we can't do that. We need to feed the dragons because they need to eat. And he's like, oh, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. I wasn't thinking. He was trying to be nice, but guess what? When you're the king, you just can't be nice. So he's like, denied. And then the next guy's like, can I have my money early? And he's like, I maybe shouldn't be doing this, but I've already decided to be nice again. And the Hand starts like walking up the steps to like kind of impose his force on him. And he's like, no, not twice in a row, because then I look weak. Even if this isn't the correct decision, I don't want to look weak. Just that whole scene, up and down, emotional, thingamajiggies, character arcs, themes, or whatever. I liked it all. It's all good stuff. The Queen who didn't die at the end, she like saw this happening. Like she knew this was going to happen, or some kind of form of this was going to happen. She like prophesized it. Is she like some kind of witch or something? I feel like I vaguely remember her saying something about an eye before Aemond's last season lost his eye. And this time she's like, ooh, I'm not afraid about the dragons or whatever she said. I'm afraid of the rats. And then they're all like, ooh, the rats. Wait, there are no rats. And he's like, oh, she's crazy. Oh dear. But she's not. She like saw that these two rat catcher boys were going to creep through the castle like rats and kill someone or do something. I'm curious to see how that develops because I find that really, really interesting. And I'm curious how much she knows. Like clearly she didn't know that she was going to be affected so kind of closely and personally, or she did, but she didn't know like how personally. Like she knew someone she loves was going to be attacked by rats, but maybe that's it. I don't know. It kind of really reminded me how Bran in season 2 of Game of Thrones would be like, there's a big tidal wave of water crashing over Winterfell. And then it turns out like guys who ride on ships take over Winterfell. So it's like he saw this vision that was more of a metaphor or whatever. So I guess she sees metaphor visions as well. I don't know. Super cool and interesting. I love all that kind of stuff. So despite being like, I don't know why they didn't kill her, I'm kind of glad because I'm kind of interested to see more metaphor dreams and try and like figure it out. Because I loved how she said that and I went, ooh, rats. Just lock that in the back of the brain for later. And then later in the episode when it was a rat catcher sneaking about, I'm like, are they going to unleash a bunch of rats to kind of get the rich people down to a common folk area to trap them? I don't know. I just had all these ideas of like, are they the rats? Is it a metaphor? Is it going to be actual rats involved? Like, I don't know. Because she had this vision and mentioned rats, suddenly you think about all these different things and how it's going to play out, which I found really interesting and exciting. Despite the fact that I don't understand the logic of them not killing everybody, pretty great app. Love this show. Mostly. I feel like, why did you start the episode being like, remember Game of Thrones? Yeah, I do. Oh, great opening titles. I love the change. I love how it's like the banners and like big kind of woven cotton whatever posters or whatever. Like big artworks of like the history of what's happened before this. I didn't want to like look too closely because I'm like, I wonder if you finish season 2, if you look back, it's going to like be spoilers almost, where you can't like notice. But then right at the end, it was like, oh no, there's the king and the queen. So I guess it's before, it was like season 1 spoilers. Maybe? I don't know. Looks great. Still feels super unimaginative and lazy and a nostalgia cash grab to use the Game of Thrones theme. But it's a great theme. So yeah, it's pretty, what are you going to do?